all this mean for 2016? Joining me now is Angela McLowan, a Fox News political analyst, and Chris Kofinis, the former chief of staff to West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. Thank you both for coming on today. Chris, despite the fact that Jeb Bush planned on releasing these emails himself, the pro-democratic group American Bridge beat him to the punch and posted them on Friday. But I don't understand. First of all, I don't know if they think that they did themselves or the Democratic Party any favors. So then what was the point of releasing the emails ahead of Bush?
Well, I think they wanted to basically, stop the governor from being able to kind of control his own narrative by releasing the emails. Listen, I think it's really interesting that the governor wanted to put these emails, put aside who put them out first or whatever. The fact that he wanted to put them out, I think, kind of is a pretty telling sign that he is running for president. You don't do something like this unless you are pretty close to pulling the trigger, and I think that's where he is right now.
But it goes to show, though, Chris, it goes to show that you guys really think that he's a contender before he's even announced. He says that he's exploring it, but for your group, this Democratic group, to release the emails before he even decides to means that you guys really might be running scared. I think that Jeb Bush has a very good chance if he throws his hat in the ring, Julie.
Okay, but but Chris, you really believe that in fact Jeb Bush was replying to all of these emails and his constituents with the mindset that eventually it's going to win him a presidency? I mean, even back in 2000 when he was defending his brother for going into Iraq and the war, you believe that he had ulterior motives in sending these emails back and defending his brother's stance? I mean, is that a bit far-fetched?
I don't know if it's far-fetched. I mean, listen, he clearly has had presidential ambitions for a long period of time, and I'm not surprised by that. I think the biggest problem, I think, from the emails to me is not so much, listen, he's going to have problems with Democrats and moderates for obvious reasons. The biggest problem he's going to have, which we've seen again and again, is with his own with conservatives, and we see that in the emails. We see that on the issue of abortion. We see that on the issue of immigration. We see that in the issue of education. I mean, he has got a real problem on the right flank. And I'm not sure how he gets past that in a Republican primary. So don't worry. In terms of Democrats being afraid of Jeb Bush, we're not afraid of Jeb Bush. The Republicans, have their own problem with Jeb Bush.
Chris, this represents true transparency, something that President Obama ran on. It shows honesty. He was intimate with his constituents and respectfully disagreed with them and explained why. It shows that he can make a strong stand, and he shows leadership. And that's what we need today. So I think that Jeb Bush throwing his hat in the ring will not divide the Republican Party. There was a poster out, Julie, that President George W. Bush had, "Miss Me Yet?" And yes, we miss the Bushes because they show true leadership. We have a president now that's very divisive.
Let me just ask you something, because you bring up immigration, and that is sort of a divisive issue. Bush had become a major advocate for comprehensive immigration reform. His wife is Mexican. He lived in the state of Florida. There are many Cubans and immigrants that live in the southern part of that state. However, he kept getting reelected. It's a Republican state. Obviously, that says a lot, especially to those legal immigrants that were voting for him, that clearly stand strong about illegal immigration in this country, and they are here the way that it should happen. They wait in line and they get their visas, and they eventually become citizens if they choose or if they're granted that. But I don't necessarily think that immigration is going to be the issue that brings them down.
Well, here's I think the important distinction. It's one thing to be, the governor of Florida and have a position on comprehensive immigration reform. It's another thing to run for president and have to go through a very conservative set of primary states, beginning with Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and have to defend those positions. It is going to be an incredibly difficult position for Jeb Bush to defend. And that, listen, it's not because I disagree with it. I believe we should have comprehensive immigration reform, obviously. But most Republicans, especially in those early primary states, are not going to be supportive of that.
Would we rather have the primary that we had in the past where Newt Gingrich went after Mitt Romney and Democrats actually used our own words against us? I believe that Republicans have learned their lesson, and I believe that they're going to pick one contender and get behind him 100%, and I believe it's going to be Jeb Bush.
Angela mentioned transparency. I would just like to say approachability, because that is something that most in Washington don't seem to exude. That is not a quality that we have seen in many presidents past. But Jeb Bush has this approachability. I mean, what elected official actually takes time to respond to probably more than 250,000 emails of concerned citizens? He, in fact, during Terry Schiavo, and I covered that whole story, and the governor came through and he showed his support for the parents of Terry Schiavo who did not want that feeding tube removed. He was in constant contact with Terry Schiavo's family, the father and the mother who desperately wanted to keep her alive. He showed compassion, and he showed approachability, and he showed a quality that, quite frankly, I think the Democratic group that released these is going to regret releasing them. It makes the Democratic Party look like they're out to get a good guy.
That they're desperate.
Well, listen, I think there's one thing to be approachable, and there's another thing in terms of what the positions, and the positions that you have on certain issues. When the governor goes out there and defends, for example, the former president on Iraq, that is going to be a serious problem if he becomes the nominee. His positions, his other positions that are clearly conservative and are, from my perspective, very conservative, are going to become a serious problem if he becomes the nominee. But to be honest, I think it's all a debate, because I just don't see how he gets past a Republican primary that's never going to believe he's conservative enough. That's the irony
the Tea
of all
Party,
this.
you would like to say, Chris, that the Tea Party represents the whole Republican Party?
No, I didn't say that.
Well, most liberals like to say that. We are a big tent party, and I believe, again, that we're all going to come together behind one candidate.
But Angela, even you will have to admit that the governor is going to have a serious problem trying to get the nomination. Even you have to admit that.
I don't think so.
All right, we're going to have to end it here, as much as I would love this debate to continue. But Chris Confinis and Angela McClowan, thank you both for talking to us.
Thanks, Julie.
We shall see.